Hey YouTube, Marth here. So the day has come to where the devs have finally announced their potential upcoming DS changes in the next patch. As many of you know, I've either been the biggest complainer, the biggest whiner, and to others the biggest advocate for this perk needing to get pretty much gone. I'm going to go over the DS changes. I'm going to then go over how I feel about it and some of the problems I do foresee for it. I know a lot of people on both sides of the fence have been either crab raving or pretty much, in other words, thinking, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. I don't have my garbage stretch perk anymore. But it's got me in a really weird mixed feeling. I'm like very happy for the change, but at the same time, it's kind of like confused at the same time. So let's go ahead and go over what the new changes are for DS, and then we will go further into the video. I'm gonna try to keep this short instead of a ramble video. So, back when DS first came out, we all knew DS was really way too strong because all four survivors could equip DS and they can use it instantly. Then they nerfed it to where only one person in a match, if say for example all four survivors are running it, and then one person would be able to use it instantly, which was the obsession, and then the other three non-obsessions would have to wiggle to 35% to then be able to get the skill check to do the decisive strike. Ultimately, this perk has been a detriment to where there's been a lot of fighting, a lot of feuding between both survivor and killer. A lot of killers completely hate this perk. Some killers are like, it's whatever, because all they do is slug. And there's even some sides on the survivor that are like, this perk is complete and utter garbage, and they refuse to run it. It's been point of contention for a very long time. Well, behavior has finally come with some proposed changes. Okay, let's see what those are. All right, and using whatever is at hand, you stab at your aggressor in an ultimate attempt to escape. So that doesn't mean they're using an item. I think that's just their wording or description to be able to use it after being unhooked or unhooking yourself. So that means Kobe's do count for this. Decisive Strike will become active and usable for 60 seconds. While Decisive Strike is active if you are grabbed, aka picked up or grabbed to where you're now in the killer's grasp, a skill check will appear, and if you hit it, it'll stun the killer for 3 seconds, and then you're able to run away. Well, here's a couple of things here that kind of are a little bit different than the previous Decisive Strike. The DS Strike would either happen at 35% or after he's fully grabbed you and the killer could dribble you. Now the skill checks actually will appear during the pickup or grabbing you, like say out of a locker, grabbing you from a pallet. It'll happen during that animation so the killer can no longer dribble. Okay, it's not the end of the world. Succeeding or failing the decisive skill check will then permanently disable the perk for the rest of the match. Successfully stunning the killer will now result you becoming the obsession. So that means even if the obsession is dead, if you hit a DS on the killer, you now become the obsession. That could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. We'll cover that in a little bit. But of course, there can only be one obsession per match. So that means if you hit DS, you gain obsession. Later in the match, someone else hits CS, they become the obsession, and you lose the obsession. So it's a little, that extra bit right there with the obsession stuff I'm really confused about, especially with how it interacts with some perks. But they wanted to add a little sprinkle flair to it. It's, hey, you know what? More power to them. Okay, so pretty much long story short, it has turned this perk into a oops, I made a mistake perk to an anti-tunnel perk. Now, how do I feel about this? I freaking enjoy the fact that now if I started the match or I catch a DS target right off the bat because they fucked up, excuse my language, sorry, they can no longer hit a skill check and boom, my great ultimate play is like completely ruined because they were spacebar strong. So that's the good aspect of it. So I won't have to worry about that. So in general, I do tunnel every once in a while if a team is being very objective humping. But that's very rare, as a lot of you will know. It's very rare to run into squads like my DPIP squad. It does happen, but it's rare. Um, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, this can pretty much is like the ultimate. You ain't gonna be rehooking this target for 60 seconds after they come off the hook, as long as, of course, they can hit the skill check. But we'll have to test it in the PTB and see how it is with relevance to enduring. Is it, is it going to really affect killers at all, even if they do to eat the decisive strike? We'll see what it goes, because with it being from the 4 seconds it was currently to 3, I think that might get tweaked between now and then. We'll see. That's what the PTB will be for. Ultimately, I've got a bad feeling we're going to start seeing a lot more unbreakables from survivors, because even if there are no DSs in the game, us as killers, we don't know. So we're going to have to play very, very, very precautious. And even like, because I don't even know how many times like you get towards the end of the game and there's only 2 survivors left. You've got the survivor running for the hook to try to save their teammate. You hit them once, okay, and then they go for the unhook, and then you hit them again. So now you've got that person you just downed, and then you've got the person who just got unhooked running off. Well, now this is going to be this is kind of the scenario that I'm worried about. Well, now, of course, as a killer, to secure your victory, you're going to go chase this guy because now you can get the 4K. Minus all the sweaty please killer comments. This is just as an example. So you go down and chase the guy that just literally got unhooked. So now this is where the boring aspect of this perk is going to come into play, and it's going to happen more realistic or not. To where, okay, I go chase that person, I down him, then I'm going to have to go back, hook the other person, and then I'm going to have to then come back and wait, I don't know, 30 seconds, 35 seconds. I'm just going to have to sit there, finger up my butt, twiddling my thumbs, waiting for that stupid little 60-second timer to go away, and then I can then pick up and hook. Granted, don't get me wrong, there are instances where this perk's going to really help, because there is a lot of issues to where there are a lot of scumbag killers who tunnel and, camp you out and things like that. I understand that, survivors, and that's good for you guys. But what you don't realize is if a killer really wants you dead, you're gonna die and you have nothing you can do about it, because DS will no longer save you against Moris. Ultimately, the biggest issue I see is it's been the plan for this development team for a very, very long time, is if there's a problem with their game in terms of game mechanic, balance issues, map issues, dot, 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 instead of actually attempt to attack the gameplay and fix that portion, throw a perk at it. Look, here's another perk. Throw it at it. Throw perks. Just like darts. Just throwing perks into spots, trying to help fix. Killers have been having to deal with this for a while. Now survivors are dealing with it now. In terms of, like, for killers, you've got the abundance of pallets that were a long time ago. Now it's a little bit less. Then you've got, like, some of the windows that are still very troublesome. Here's bamboozle. Take care. It's like, it's things that they could have made, like bamboozle, a game mechanic instead of a perk. Granted, don't get me wrong, I know there's people are going to be cringing at that, but I'm just using it as an example. Because you only have 4 perk slots for survivors and killers. Now survivors have been having a lot of issues with camping, tunneling, slugging, and then, you've just got a lot of different aspects as a survivor that you have to deal with as well. Granted, don't get me wrong, a killer's goal is to kill you. If he wants to kill you, you've got to accept it. But there are scummy tactics, and I understand that, and I know where you're coming from as a survivor, because I've been playing Survivor too. Sorry, a little bit of acid reflux today. Ultimately, when it comes down to it in the end, even if this perk doesn't make it, I hope this, granted, as even though I don't think this perk is really thought out too well, I just think they've got too much flair on it for whatever reason, and they overcomplicated the perk, but it's at least in a better standing than what the current Decisive Strike is. This Decisive Strike at least gives the killer some counterplay, because don't get me wrong, dribbling sucks. Losing your target right off the bat, you could dribble and things like that, don't get me wrong. There are sometimes a way you could work around the Decisive Strike. But ultimately, at least now, it's like mixed, because now I'm going to have to assume everyone's got Decisive Strike, and I'm going to be, even if they don't have it, I'm gonna have to be waiting seconds, a minute, and it's just wasted, boring time because I'm just sitting there like this because I'm like, okay, well, you're the last survivor I down, but you just literally got off the hook. It's like, crap, do I wait? Do I not? It's like, I don't know, it's really, really weird. And then you've got the obsession changing, which completely like negates some perks and strengthens some other perks. It's weird. So, in the long run, it's going it's not the answer to the problem, but at least it makes it less of an annoyance of a perk. In terms of at least you can just kill if you catch someone right away, they're not going to get an instant out. But there are still going to be instances where this perk's going to still be very annoying. You're going to have to wait for times. It's going to be almost a guaranteed late game power where it's almost an instant guarantee out. But it's like they already like honestly, I'd rather my teammates, just all four of us, like even for like the DPIP squad. I know we're going to test this out once it comes out, but even myself, I'd just rather all four of us run borrowed time. That's a lot stronger than decisive strike, because ultimately the killer can still down you instantly from the hook, and then just wait 60 seconds because the timer still continues no matter if you're living, dying, doesn't matter. So it's one of those situations to where it's a decent change in terms of getting rid of the annoying DS that we deal with now today. Is it the right fix? Probably not. Is there a lot of controversy around it because obsession changing? Is it like, I don't know, is it excessive because some of the perks like Dying Light are going to die out? Remember Me is going to be pretty bad now. Granted, don't get me wrong, you can potentially get more stacks, but usually you want your obsession dead by the end of game because they're not affected by the slowness when they try to open the exit gates. So if a new target becomes the obsession, like right before the exit gates open, well, now you've got someone that you've got to worry about being able to open them early. Granted, there is counterplay. There's ways to avoid this as killer, so it shouldn't be too bad. I think I should. It won't even affect me at all, which is good. But I can see that there might be times to where it's just going to be more of a time waster and bring more boring aspect to the game than actually helping the game, because now you're going to have a lot more slugging meta coming into play, and we all know survivors don't like to be slugged. Well, I guess survivors, you're going to have to start running, instead of decisive strikes, unbreakables. And I mean, a lot of the community is going to probably need to start running it because a lot of killers are going to start slugging more and more because we don't know who the DS target is or anything like that. The good killers, they'll be happy about this because this change won't really affect us in terms of, oh no, because we usually don't tunnel anyway off the hook. We usually go for the saver, or we're already across the way of the map. The perk probably won't ever affect us unless it's in the game. But in terms of, is it the right change? No, I don't feel like it is. It's just going to cause a lot more issues, a lot more controversy in terms of slugging, boring gameplay mechanics, having to wait times at the very end game. It's going to be weird, but it's just going to be a lot of different situations that we're going to have to deal with. But in the end, I've always adapted. Granted, I've complained, advocated, hated the perk for all my life. It's at least a decent enough change to where the perk isn't going to be just like the most detrimental thing in the game. So I thank you, Behavior, for finally doing it. I hope this doesn't end up hitting the PTB and then you guys have to pull it back because the obsession thing isn't working properly, which is what my biggest fear is. I honestly don't understand why you guys threw that on there. That is, like, I understand if that would be a thing later in the future when it might have perks that are like, if you become the obsession mid-game, this perk could, like, you could instantly become exposed or something, things like that. But right now, it I don't know, it just doesn't feel like it's in the right place. But in the end, as long as it comes to the point to where at least it can hit live and not be like breaking the game in terms of bad coding and stuff like that, it'll be fine. This will be a lot better for killers. Killers kind of need to cool their jets. Like even myself personally, I'll be able to finally take Enduring off Nurse because I only run Enduring on Nurse because I freaking hate Decisive Strike. And it's like Enduring may not be required that often anymore because DS is just that crap of a perk where killers had to respect it. But so it might end up freeing a perk slot. I don't know. I may not be needing to run Enduring Spirit Fury. We'll see. It's just ultimately it's one of those situations. It's like it's a love hate relationship because you know it's just a little fluffy, but at the same time, at least it's fixing a little bit the most annoying perk in the game. So in conclusion, I can't wait for the change to finally come into play. I hope it doesn't get delayed too often, but it's going to be a good change because at least you won't be outskilled by a spacebar for making a really damn good play as a killer, but you will have to really respect it. Even if no survivors are running it, you have to be careful because ultimately it could still swing games if you're not paying attention, and the target that you pick up after, whatever the situation means, I think it's just gonna cause a lot of issues in the game. When you've got the final two survivors and you're trying to secure that 4K, it might delay it by a little bit, or you're gonna have to deal with the slugging for a while. It's just, I think that aspect is gonna be the only real major aspect issue to it. But other than that, at least it's a change where it's gonna make it less annoying. But it's like, to me, it's just extra. Let's just throw all this glob on it and make it look like it's a big change. When in reality, it really isn't. It'll be a decent change. Like, honestly, you could take that whole obsession thing off and just leave it at the 60 seconds unhooked and stuff like that. But other than that, that's my thoughts on DS. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll try to, be responsive as much as I can. I know I haven't been able to do YouTube as much with my health and full-time job and streaming, but I'm going to try to get into it more and more as I can. But other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day and be safe.